All right, so 2017 Nissan Juke, we're going to be doing the front brake rotors and brake pads. So we're going to go ahead and put the emergency brake on the car, make sure that I chalk the rear wheels. We'll loosen the lug nuts and get this thing in the air and get started. Right, actually I left my chocks, so we're improvising here with just some pieces of wood. All right, so these are 13/16. I'm going to go ahead and loosen these up before we put the car in the air.
Been in my zone, feel it still in my spirit, I've been on my own. Still just living my legend till my day's gone. Still been feeling grateful just for making it home.
We've got a jack stand as well.
And
we can zip these up.
Giving me space, hold the applause, just give me a hug. If I said that I would catch you, would you fall for me? If you ain't heard from me lately, would you call for me?
We have access to everything we need.
Really,
and just by looking, I can already see.
See,
shine the light there, right there. These pads look like they got some uneven wear on them. You see that? So it's a good thing he's changing the rotors too. So let's take a look and see why that happened. So we're gonna go ahead and start with taking these bolts off here. There's one at the top, one right here at the bottom. I'll get a better shot. There we go. These are a size 14, so we can go ahead and get these off. That one's loose. We'll loosen the one on the bottom, same way. I'm gonna go ahead and get this one on the bottom, also 14. All right. Perfect. And make sure you don't misplace these. All right, so the top and bottom bolt are removed in the back. Now we can try to slide off the caliper, and we may need a flathead to pry it off. Let's see. All right, this one just came right off, perfect. Now that I have this off, I'm actually gonna hang the caliper up here on the strut. We don't wanna put any stress or tension really on this hose, on the brake hose here. So you see that rubber brake hose? You don't wanna over flex it or over bend it. So we're gonna go ahead and hang this up. All right, as you can see here, I went ahead and zip tied the caliper out the way. That way we have access. We're not putting too much stress on that hose there. All right, so already you can see there's some uneven wear on the brake pads. I'd say this one's probably worn about 80% of the way, where this one's probably closer to like 70%. And that's really due to these slide pins on the caliper. I've already pulled them out a couple times just to kind of break them up, but they are pretty seized up in there. So we're gonna re-grease these to make sure we get proper pressure on the caliper itself, and that way you get even wear. So we'll go ahead and take these off now. And you might have to use a screwdriver, but I think I can just slide this one off. Actually, no, we're gonna pull out the screwdriver to get that one. We'll do the same on this back one here. And this is the outer pad. And you can already see the difference in wear between those two pads. So this is the outer brake pad, but then this is the inner brake pad. You can see how it's definitely got more meat on it. So uneven wear for sure. So next thing we're gonna be doing is removing the caliper bracket bolts. So this is the top one, and this is the bottom caliper bracket bolt. And these are both 19s. So, all right, this is the top one here. Alright, so we got our long breaker bar. Sometimes you just need a little more leverage. Alright guys, so we got those loose, and honestly sometimes it just takes a couple cuss words. Zip them off the rest of the way. And be careful when you take this bottom one off so that the bracket doesn't fall on you. Alright, so we got a hand on our bracket. We're going to loosen it the rest of the way. Alright, now we can come around here and get this taken off. Alright, so we got our caliper bracket off here. We are going to be re-greasing these pins, and now we can take the rotor off as well. And there we go, the rotor is off. Now we're going to work on taking our wire brush and scrubbing this off, putting a nice little coat of anti-seize. And if you notice, they are different shapes, so I'm going to take note of this side here. So this is actually going to be the top part of the caliper. And I may even just put the bolt in here just to kind of mark that spot until I re-grease this. There we go. just a couple hand threads there. Now we're gonna go ahead and take this shim off here, pop it out, and take our parts cleaner and get all this cleaned up. And unfortunately, I left my wire brush, so I'm gonna scrub this down with the rag the best I can. And really just get these channels right here where the brakes actually slide through on both sides. Just kind of scrubbing that channel out the best we can. The wire brush is definitely ideal in this situation, but I left mine, so make and do. Next, we're gonna go ahead and pop these out. We're gonna make sure we inspect these boots really well, and then we're gonna re-grease these slide pins. So let's go ahead and pop this out. Take note that this one here on the bottom also has that little rubber kind of sleeve on it. We're gonna go ahead and just wipe this down, wipe this off, and we're gonna apply some fresh grease on it. And I got some synthetic brake grease here, and you definitely wanna make sure you use proper brake grease. That way it keeps sliding on you and it doesn't seize up. Because sometimes if you use the wrong grease, it'll seize up on you. The boot itself actually looks pretty good. I went ahead and cleaned out some of the grease from the inside, re-greased this pin, and now we're gonna go ahead and pop that back into place. And there it goes. You can see the difference in how this actually has a lot more action now. This is the one we just greased. You see how it goes in, it pops right out. And this is the old one, me pushing pretty forcefully. And like if I force it out, it'll start to go in and out a little better, but you see how it just kind of sinks back in. So that is what gives you your uneven brake pad wear. At least one of the factors. There's a couple other reasons, but that's one factor there. So we're gonna do the same steps on this side, which was the top one. So I just pulled the one on top, and you can see just how dark and gross that grease looks. So nice and cleaned off. Inspect it, just make sure it's not bent up or beat up in any kind of way. If so, you do want to replace these. And man, that grease is definitely worn out. So this one was definitely seizing on them and not coming out all the way. So that's what gave him a lot of that really bad wear. So we'll clean that up a little more, re-grease it. And I really just wanted you guys to see how this one here doesn't have that rubber sleeve on it like the one on the bottom did. So that's why I just put that little bolt in there to help mark it. Just so I knew that wherever this bolt is the top part of the caliper. That way, if you take both of these out, you won't confuse yourself. All right, so we got it cleaned up, but I'm not seeing any dings or like divots. I will say this spot right here where it's kind of shiny, that worried me a little bit, but when I ran my finger across it and my nail, I'm not feeling any kind of indentation or any slope really. So I think we're gonna be good here. But if you do have these and they're beat up pretty bad or have flat spots because of how bad they were seized, replace them. They're a couple bucks, replace them. With these nice and greased up, we're gonna clean this one up a little bit better. The boots are in good shape and everything. We're gonna go ahead and reinstall our shims. And remember, the one with these funky ears is the one on the top. So we'll go ahead and pop these in place. There you go. Shouldn't take much force, if any at all, to get it popped in. And that's how it looks. Everything should be nice and flush. Nothing should be overhanging in here. And this lip, if it helps you, this lip here is going to come towards the outside edge there. That lip should not be up here, because then you will definitely be scraping. All right, like I said, you can take a look. We're nice and flush on all sides here. Also want to note right here in these grooves where the actual brake pads will be sliding, I put a very, very thin layer of some of this grease here. And now we can go ahead and start working on this caliper here. All right, so I went ahead and cleaned off the actual caliper piston here, re-greased the little boot here a little bit just to kind of rejuvenate it there. I do have this fancy caliper tool. You don't have to have one. This C-clamp works. If you are going to go the C-clamp method, this is what you want to do. Just make sure you use like the old brake pad up against the caliper there, and then you can go ahead and twist the handle and just you're going to turn it until it bottoms out completely. So next I got this new rotor right on top of the old rotor. All my bolt holes line up, so we look identical. And before we put this on, we're going to spray both sides with some parts cleaner. And this is just because on the shelf, to keep them from rusting, they do put like a coat of oil on them. It's Spray both sides, like I said, very liberally with our parts cleaner. Alright, so we went ahead and got the rotor on, and just to keep this rotor from falling while we put the bracket back on, we're just gonna go ahead and hand thread a lug nut on here. Bracket installed back here, and then we'll go ahead and put the pads on and the caliper piston itself. Now it's time to get these 19mm bolts back in on the back of the bracket here, and we're just gonna hand tight these for right now. The same on the bottom. All right, like I said, same thing here. Get those in just hand tight. Then we're gonna go ahead and tighten these down. And I don't have the torque specs for them. You do want them these nice and tight. Bottom and top. And this is just so you guys can see the difference. This is the new pad, and then this is an old pad, and you can see the thickness in them. So it's a big difference in the thickness there. New pad here, old pad. So we are going to grease these fins right here just lightly on each of the pads, just where it actually, like I said, touches onto the caliper itself. And I know this tab actually locks in to the rest of it itself. So next we're going to go ahead and put on the caliper itself. I'm just backing up this bolt that I use. Put the caliper in itself. Also on these pads, make sure you slide this little tab into the brake pad itself right here. And then we're going to tighten down those two 14mm caliper bolts back here. All right, so we got the top caliper bolt on, and we have the one back here on the bottom. Those are both 14s, and you can see how nice this all looks together. So we're gonna go ahead and throw the wheel on, and we'll do the other side.
Guys, 5, 6, since I went there. Yeah. Yeah.